Somebody asked me if I'm autistic. I'm autistic as shit.
That. So before we started recording, we were discussing like being patronizing to people. I made the very offhand comment about Joe working in a supermarket, and I said it was very out of pocket. And by that, I mean completely in pocket, which I said, it's hard for you to be condescending working at a supermarket. Now, that sounds awful. And it probably is. Somebody right now is working in Iceland, who's dropped to their knees going, how have you done this to me? Like, but what I mean is, of all the professions to be condescending pricks out of, a supermarket worker is like, if you were to have like a Premier League table, I think they're lower mid-table, you know? I think they give you attitude, but they don't give you condescension.
Condensation, yeah.
Like, they don't evaporate, you know? Like, I personally think that if we're going to go through like a table here, let's make it a Champions League group stage, okay? Which is 14. 14. I think that supermarket workers are the least condescending. And number one is GP receptionists.
Ooh.
Like,
okay. My brother worked as a GP receptionist for a time.
Tell me about it. Like, is he a condescending piece of shit?
My brother? No, only in private. It's fine.
See, in private is enough, okay?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Not
I think number two on that list, teachers. I think that primary school teachers, or like especially head teachers, are arguably, and I know this from experience from both ends, because I've been the condescending guy. And my favorite thing is knowing when to do it, you know? Like, have the youthful face. So me being a teacher is hilarious. So whenever I have a parent speak to me in a really high-pitched voice if I don't know what I'm doing, my favorite thing is to return the favor. You know? Just little things like that. I think that is the vast majority of teachers. I think, like, you know, we're here because we should be here. We're teaching your stupid fucking kids because they should be here and we should be teaching stupid fucking kids. And now you're going to listen to what I say because Billy has tried to attack Joseph and we cannot be having it. So at home, you need to have a nice, strong talking to Billy about your behavior and you need to think about your actions. And you as a parent need to really like understand why he's doing this, you know? See, and that's the type of like voice you get to use 24/7. Like, it was great. Now, number 3, I actually don't know. I think it could be a toss-up between mechanics talking to a woman. Okay. Personally.
Real specific.
Like just the assumption that they don't know anything. You know, trying to get an extra 150 quid here or there. Or, and I'm struggling with this one. Because I realize my life experience kind of bottoms out there.
Yeah, that's...
Airport workers in general. But I think they're just permanently angry people, which isn't really condescending. They're just angry. Like, they just want to fight you. And that's okay.
Like, there's such a difference between us, and I know this is partly just because we're doing this, but you take such big swings that I don't even need to nope out. I just don't do anything, and then it's just, but I still am a casualty because of the nature of how this works out. I'm still here. I say casualty, I'm not fucking dying.
When the Sun writes their hit piece, they'll mention your name first. Like, they'll somehow mention your name first. They'll be like,
yeah, hold on. There was episodes in the past. There is an episode, I can't remember which one, but in the past you literally described how I was going to end up with the most like controversial takes out of everything that's happened. Currently, you're working on it. You're working to disprove that entire theory. That
I'm already awaiting trial at The Hague. Okay, you're yet to be sentenced and charged. Okay, you're yet to be arrested.
And my charge is going to be a lot greater when we get there. That's what you're saying.
Like, right, I feel like you're going to say something, and neither of us are going to clock in on how bad it is until like 2 or 3 years down the line. And then it's also like, I like a live show that they'd be like, episode 41, Joe, you made a really ableist comment. You know, you literally said that these people can't do this thing.
And I agree with it fully.
Yeah, you're gonna look at me. We're gonna be on a panel, and there's gonna be someone in a wheelchair. I'm gonna look at them before I look at you. And I wouldn't be able to remember whether you said it or not, even though I edited the episodes. You'll be looking at me being like, help me. I'll be looking at the person in the wheelchair being like, in advance, I'm sorry. And then I'm like,
I stand by it. I stand by it. Ramps are ableist against you. Just some fucking mad outtake.
Like, my favorite, like, on the topic of ableism, actually, just to segue from everything to do with being condescending pricks.
Let's start.
Learning about accessibility has been one of the best things I've ever had the privilege of doing, for one simple reason. And it sounds like I'm covering my back about using ableism as a reference for comedy. But no. The idea of you have a ramp, and that ramp is made so that wheelchairs and pushchairs also can get into and accessible. But it doesn't come at the cost of somebody else not being able to enter a room, which means that make something accessible isn't just making something accessible so people can get in the room. It makes it accessible so more people can get in. It's never about limiting, it's about making something more than. So you have steps, only certain people can get up those steps. If you remove the steps completely and put a ramp, everybody can get in that room. And that is accessibility as a core point. I'm like, wow, look at that. Who would have thought? And I realized we have people fighting against this, calling it woke.
Yeah, that's just, there is a clear physical limit that exists. For example, if, from one area to another area, it's incredibly steep. Like the underground, for example, has escalators, and even those are steeper than stairs are normally, right? Because and the fact that you don't have to use stairs is a blessing in multiple ways as a result. There are sometimes stairs, but you know what I mean? It's the fact that it isn't generally, right, is clearly a good for the fact of most people needing to get around, especially in busy times where the chance of you falling is extremely high, trying to just make yourself downstairs. And even outside of people in wheelchairs, like people who are older or people who just have like my mum having issues with her leg or specifically her knee, like arthritis in her knee kind of thing, all this sort of thing. But the idea that that something that is clearly this is just all you would need is to take this bit and just get rid of the bit where it goes up and then across and just made that into a single gradient. It's just mad to me that there's anyone who ever has anything to say about that. It's just bizarre. And it's not like we haven't been working with ideas in the past, for all of those examples I gave, the example I gave with the tube in London. It's that's why there are lifts. Not at every station. Not every station is actually available for people who are own wheelchairs. They're not all wheelchair accessible. And Jamil, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I've known someone since I was born. I mean, obviously I didn't really understand that they existed, but there's a picture of me when I was less than 1 year old I can't remember if I'm in their arms. I think I must be in his arms, in the wheelchair. So he knows me, and I've known him for as long as I've been alive. So I'm aware of what he has to do with taxis and train stations and tube stations and all sorts, the gambit of that. I've learned, either sort of while being with him more vicariously by, through family and stuff. But it's just madness sometimes, the limitations it puts on people, and the idea that people are against allowing someone to break those limitations more easily in a space where, like you said, it provides, it takes away nothing, is absolutely ridiculous at so many different levels.
So yeah, that, people, is proof that we are not anti-Semitic. So,
but again, it's a weakness. It's a crutch.
This is Silly Worlds. We have this is the longest. This is 10 minutes and we haven't done it. Jesus. This is a mental health podcast, and we are not brought to you by any corporation or any organization yet. This is a show we talk about things to do with mental health, mental illness. We might touch on topics, as you can probably guess. this is your first ever episode, I'm so sorry. But we might touch on heavy topics, suicide, depression, all that stuff. We've passed 10 minutes now, which means that YouTube shouldn't demonetize us, but they don't monetize us anyway, so it's fine.
Malika.
Malakia. But if you don't want to partake in the show or listen into the show, whatever, that's okay. This show is for everyone, but it might not be for you. That's it. That is our intro. Most of the time, we started it off with the whole tier list of who can be the worst workers ever, and so far we have number one, who was being GP receptionist. Number two,
I truly disagree with so much of this. By the way,
being education, anyone who works in education, and number three being mechanics talking to women. 4 being supermarket workers. And the thing is that supermarket workers is in there because Joe's in there. But in reality, they're relegated already. They are the least obtrusive people ever. They can't.
So I bring up the average.
Yeah, they can't be condescending because they don't want you to be anywhere near them anyway. So, am I wrong? Would you not love a day where there's just no customers, you had nothing to do?
100%.
See?
By far, it's the worst part of the job. There isn't even a question. That's actually true. A lot of people don't feel that way. So a lot of people don't do anything apart from that side of the job. I work in a situation where there are people who are like, I don't want to do any of that shelving shit or organizing stuff. The fuck no, that stuff is awful. No, I want to just chat with customers at the front.
But being a receptionist at the GP, you have to at least I read the job description for being one, and they make it sound like it's super crazy. You call it administration assistant or whatever, because calling it a receptionist is now a bit too much. So
no, that's not the reason. That's not the reason.
I'm gonna say it is.
Okay,
I work for the Sun now. Okay.
I'm so bad at this. I'm so bad at improv. I swear. I can't follow it because I'm so bad at yes-anding things. Because the problem is I don't know when we've started. I can't work within that that frame in my mind. I need to know I'm doing improv.
We've never ended. We've never ended. This whole show has been improv. All 27
I don't think
episodes.
I know who Alex is, really. I don't know where he begins or where he ends. This might be the real Alex, and this is the intro. This is not the improv. This is actually the real bit.
I can't wait for us to do a live show and someone to be like, what is the real Alex? And then Will Smith walks into the room instead. And that's it. And I get up and he sits down and I leave and then he continues. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay, Alex, how do I yes and this? Let me think about this for a second. Okay. Go on, brother, please.
Do you know, I'll take Jaden Smith. If Jaden Smith and then I get up and he sits down, I'll be happy with that. I think the tier, the limit of who I would have to play me or to take over me on this show is the bar is so low, but it's also quite high. Reggie Yates is in, and that's the Premier League pick right there. That is a main pick. I'm picking Reggie Yates. Okay.
Yeah, you Reggie Yates, me David Tennant. That was our decision early on. Yeah,
pretty much. Idris Elba's in our Premier League pick. I would have had James Earl Jones. There's so many picks we could have here. But yeah, right now, we're in a decent space. Now, I don't want to talk about what I've done, what I did yesterday for the whole thing. So I'm going to ask if you want to go first.
Do you think if you start, you're not going to end? Is that what you're saying?
If I start, this will be a 6-hour episode.
Okay. I don't have a ton to talk about because I'm in I think I've mentioned before, I'm going through sort of not mental health things, but I've been thinking a lot and I've been changing my mind recently. So I don't have a ton to talk about. And I think this is the problem of a person like me who, as is quite clear throughout all of this, sort of relies upon their internal, I was going to say strife, that's really not the right word, their internal, findings, essentially, to create discussion and to create, and I entirely work upon that for myself. And also, I think it's just how I define myself day to day. It's, I think, all of these different things I'm thinking about. So I'm a little bit unclear in that regard. It probably says something a lot about why I am the way I am, actually, now that I really think about it. Maybe I should think on that. No. But I recently had a lovely day. I shouldn't say a lovely day. I had a lovely few days with my mum and dad because they came to Worcester because it was my birthday. And they hadn't been, and they were like, okay, we need to do it. And my dad is also old enough that he is sort of, not working as much as he was previously. He's not like fully retired, but he has gotten to the point where he is working significantly less. And as a result, essentially working part-time, which, considering he worked almost every day, basically means, he works like 3 days now, that kind of thing. Like he goes into the office 3 days, I think is the idea. So as a result, it made a lot more sense. Someone else is doing the bulk of the job, which means he can be available on a Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, which literally would not have been possible. I'm not joking. Like Monday and Tuesday, especially, are days that he wakes up at 6 and heads off to work at 7. And and this has been true since I was very young. Like I can't remember how young it would be, but like probably. It wouldn't honestly be that crazy to say at least 18 years. To say that like Monday and Tuesday have always been, he gets up really early, he leaves before I saw him in the morning, and he gets back at like 7. Like that was a pretty consistent situation. And like I said, he works like basically every day. Obviously, he does take time off when, because of the way that his job is, he doesn't have like clear hours like that. So, but
I would remember when I was
his
at
life
your house,
into his work. Yeah.
I remember when I was at your house, I knew that I was like been staying at your house for too long when your dad comes home, because I was like always around like 7 o'clock ish. And he always had the look of, I've had to fight off the world. I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And we go again like his face pretty much says, we go again. Like,
that's him. Like his identity is in it. Like it's his life. And it's something to like about him. It's something not to idolize about him, which I've definitely realized over the course of my life, but it's definitely something to appreciate about him as a person. Anyway, sorry, getting a bit off track. This is me. They came by. They got a lovely Airbnb in the Morvens, which they got a place which was nice, but also they were like, hey, let's treat you. So I got to stay in. Oh, sorry, I said the Morvens. The Morvens is a set of hills in the West Country. I shouldn't say West Country, the West Midlands in the UK, in specifically England. And it's a set of hills that's really wonderful. I've been to Malvern a few times. And we went there. It was horrific weather. It was horrific weather on the Sunday that they arrived, when they took me and Demi and Kessis out to a lovely dinner at Zizi, the pizza restaurant, the Italian restaurant, sorry. We went out that evening, lovely evening, terrible weather afterwards. And the next day, terrible weather. And they were there the whole day. So we went to the Malvern Museum, which is a very small museum, but they actually managed to pack a lot of things, and a surprisingly good audio tour thing. I think initially when I picked up the audio pack, because we just got it for as part of the payment going in, I was like, oh god, like I've never even had an audio tour thing for a museum or anything like that. Like it was already a part of me that was like, oh, this is extra. And I could tell my dad felt the exact same way, because we are the same on this, which is just anything new we immediately seize up on, specifically around certain things. Like it's not everything, it's just like really specific, almost OCD like things, where we just like very specifically for some reason have a weird irrational experience of awkwardness around the idea of adding something. But honestly was amazing, and it was surprisingly funny. I think that was the best thing about it, was that the audio thing, it wasn't just a carbon copy of the stuff they had on the walls, like the written stuff, and it involved like, brother Luke, who had like a kind of like West Midlands Welsh accent, because I guess that was the idea that they would go, like, they were kind of, that was the accent that existed at the time that was relevant for Brother Luke. when he existed, which he might be fictional, I don't know, but he existed then. And it was great. It was wonderful. And then we went to the Malvern Priory, which was like this church, which was surprisingly cool to go into. And then they were like, and the whole thing, I was going to take them to Worcester Cathedral, which is a very like consistent. I shouldn't say consistent. It's a very like well-known cathedral in the UK. It's like Worcester Cathedral, because Worcester is a very important place from a religious aspect, from its religious history. And it was like, yeah, you definitely go Worcester Cathedral. And after the Priory, they were like, I mean, we can go. I don't even know if it's going to be as good as the Priory was. And then we went, and it was amazing because I knew what was there. Like, there was a lot of stuff there, and it was amazing and incredible. And they were shocked how big it was and all these other sorts of things. I should say my dad, who grew up Catholic, has a real big interest with like churches and things like that. So if we go on holiday anywhere in Europe, especially, well, I guess I've only been in Europe, but went on holiday with him. But whenever we go, he always wants to go to, like, if there's a church nearby, we should go. Also because it's just very historically relevant. There's so much involved in like the church's history in different places. It's a very good way of interacting with the history of a place. Me and him both love that sort of thing. So we went there. It was lovely. We had a really nice day. Lots of my mum had made food and brought it over, so we could just have food at the lovely place that we stayed at. And the next day, when they were leaving, was the best day of weather. It was sunny. It was sunny like immediately. Like, it wasn't full blue sky, but it was lovely, and it was just that kind of like, fucking hell, like, come on, like, really, do we have to always work within these shitty parameters? God almighty. But that's just my birthday. My birthday has always been a time which has been bad for birthdays because it's always been like rainy, or it's always been like films don't come out in September. From my memories as a kid, I remember that like no good films came out around the time that I was on my birthday. So it's just always one of those weird things where I just had to kind of get used to it. And obviously you've been to a load of my birthdays where we just went laser tag. Like that became the thing, because that can happen no matter what the weather is, because it's just in a bunker.
Like I only went laser tag with you like twice, I think.
I feel like we went more than twice, because I feel like I did it like at least 3 or 4 birthdays. I've definitely did it more than twice, and I assume that unless I'm thinking of other times where I went with cousins, which might also be true.
We should go laser tag again, though. It's always fun.
It's fun. I've heard that things like airsoft. There you go. Airsoft, and what's the other one that's like airsoft, but it's
paintball?
Not paintball. And paintball are both more interesting just because they tend to be in bigger premises.
So I went down a rabbit hole of airsoft, and I really do enjoy watching airsoft videos. It's quite bad, but because it's something I really want to do, but I know that if I had the money to do it, I would invest in it. But I would gift and never actually do it. I don't think I would get into the like full I brought my own guns kind of thing. Yeah, like I get the expression, but airsoft can be like that a lot. And I think the most accessible thing bar laser tag is paintball. Paintball is so much fun. But like, yeah, I love those things anyway. Those things are really, I love doing activities, but it's super hard to do activities now. Like, I'm going to sound like an old man, but there comes a time where like, back when we were in secondary school, we could always go, oh yeah, we should go airsoft. And we'll all just hop on the train. And like, one of us will book in advance for everybody. We'll go. And it'll cost us, like, a group of 6, it will cost us all, like, I don't know, under 100.
Okay, yeah.
Now it's, like, down there doubled, I think. And maybe I'm talking complete shit. But it's just like...
Oh, I'm sure it is. I remember back when it was my birthday looking at it that it was going to be expensive. But that was later than the times you're talking about, I think.
Yeah, right. I just miss, honestly, I'm sorry to like derail you slightly. I had a cry a couple of weeks ago because I really just wanted to go to an arcade. I want to hear about cries. Yeah. I really want to just go to an arcade. Like, remember me and like, I've never mentioned an X on the show. We're doing it. Look at this. Remember me and my ex, like you the one you met two, the tall one,
Okay, yeah.
the tall Scottish one. There we go. You mentioned me, but I'm gonna kill you. Yeah, dead now.
You can use a code word if you want.
No.
Okay, fair enough.
Death
Not even a
waste.
letter. The tarot card of death flips
like,
over.
she has no reason to contact me so she'd have no. I'm just like, well, I feel like catastrophizing. I beat you all at Mario Kart. Life was great. Like, I love arcades. It's one of my favorite things to do. There used to be one in Oxford Street called Trocadero, and like I would love to go there. And finding like an arcade now, I think the one we went to was in Soho, maybe. Back
It
then.
was, yeah.
But like, I would just love an arcade like in a vicinity of like East London that isn't a gentrified hipster hangout. Like, I just.
Yeah, I don't believe it's in East London, but at some point when you're chatting about Anthony Jeselnik, I'll do a little bit of research just on the side.
Yeah, I know that
because there is a place I know, because me and Kessis were talking about where they have like actual
64,
proper
whatever?
gaming going on. It's not called no. It begins with, but I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Yeah, like I would just love play the Simpsons arcade game, Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom. I'm gonna buy the whole collection of it all. But I had like a bit of a cry of being like, I just want to like be able to go Trocadero with like around £20 of pound coins in my pocket and just like win and everything, you know. And just,
I mean, these places exist for sure, but I know what you mean.
But
because,
I think,
yeah,
nostalgia. There's a bit of nostalgia. It's also a bit of an accessibility as well. I think like the next like now I'm thinking about it, there are like proper arcades about. But again, Soho's a bit of a bop. The main one being Trocadero. There was Funko Namscape in Westminster near like where the aquarium is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or SeaWorld. So it's like we've lost a few, you know. But yeah, I don't know, man.
So, Jed, the last thing I'll say, because obviously I know you want to chat, and I don't want to get in your way after that. I meant to rhyme that. Maybe we should just talk in rhyme on this podcast and it just never stop. I'll think of that before talking about your Soho Bop. The place, the interesting thing recently has been having a bike. I obviously said last time that I was taking my bike somewhere to be looked at. I did. I'm not getting that repaired by anyone from that particular place. Like, it's too much money. So it's going to be a project. I'm going to work on actually repairing that bike. It doesn't require much. I asked the guy there, like, okay, what needs to be done? Like, what would need to be done? Like 100%. And he was like, in order to use it. And he was like, okay, well, and he did. This interaction did not go how I'm saying it did, by the way. I sound way too confident or authoritative in this moment. And it wasn't like that. He just actually did me a big favor by just me saying, oh, I actually kind of want to think about like learning how to do this shit and repairing it myself. And he was like, well, if you wanted to take it on the road, if you do these two things, and he like just revealed to me the problems and was just like, if you do those two things, like you're good. One of them is the wheel, which I knew was a problem, so that wasn't a question. But the other one was the front brake needs to be patched like completely because I need to do something. I need to learn how to do brake stuff. So that will probably cost instead of like £200, it might cost in the realm of like 40 or something like that. Like probably less than that, in fact. But in the meantime, I've actually been cycling because I got another bike of the same friend, Kestis. He got another bike, and it's a small bike, so it's not really usable long term because, yes, I'm not. It's good for me in the sense that I get the chance to actually use a bike to, get used to exercising with it, basically, because there's just muscles in my legs. Like what I realized was, the whole high knees thing that you do with warming up or with football and all that stuff.
Yep.
I didn't realize just how clearly I have not high kneesed in my life for a while, because I rode on the bike, but I just realized this pain across the top of my legs in like so powerfully when I started going uphill. And Worcester, for those who don't know anything about Worcester, Worcester is a very hilly place. Like I remember talking about this with my mum somewhat because she has a dodgy knee, that I was like, just so you know, where I live and also Malvern, where you're planning to like get this Airbnb, these are not like, there's a lot of like, everywhere you go is a hill at some level. Like there's very few places that doesn't end up at a hill very quickly. Like you're not on flat very often. And she rides a bike for her work. And I remember when she saw my street, which is on like a plateau that goes on a very sharp downhill towards the center and then a very sharp uphill away from the center, she was like, "Oh, I would not cycle around here." And I was like, "Yeah, it's difficult." So it's one that, but people cycle all the time. Like the kids around here, also adults, like cycle all the time here. So it's not in any way like one of those things that doesn't happen. But I've obviously not got any of the like the muscle in my legs is not designed for it at this point. And I also have a small bike, which I do think matters. But I think to myself, if I can manage to do a hill that even if I'm struggling to fuck, if I can do a hill that I think is almost impossible on this tiny bike, if I can like work myself up to do that, then you know what? Does it really then suddenly like I've set myself up for having a better bike, which will make it a bit easier because the wheels are bigger. So therefore there's a bit more turn for every turn of my. Now I was also thinking about this. I actually don't know if the physics works on that properly because I think arguably there's like maybe more effort I'm having to make in the push part technically for the amount of extra movement that comes from it. I actually don't know because that's the difference between gears and just physical like space of the actual wheel. However, I'm standing by it at least because it's helping make me feel better about what I'm doing. So if I'm wrong, then I don't care because I just want to try with what I'm assuming is a worse bike for the job in order to hopefully at some point do better with a bike that I assume is better for the job, and I'm just going to work with that. But I have actually genuinely enjoyed it. I think that's the biggest thing about it is that I've genuinely enjoyed riding the bike. I've genuinely enjoyed having a bike and using it and feeling actually really kind of hype about having a bike and using it and in the future getting good at it and being able to go like far off places without needing a car and all that sort of stuff. Like I genuinely am like I'm thinking about the next time I go to Kessa's house, I'm going to take the bike there. You know, like I'm going to, even if I can't get up that first hill, I'm going to like push up the first hill and then I'm going to cycle the rest of the way. And it's so much quicker. Like it's fascinating how much quicker it is in a way coming from someone who walks all the time, you know, or someone who takes public transport. It's fascinating because so often I'm with people where it's like a car or a taxi is what they like rely on. And I've always been someone that even like on a night out, I'm like, I'm happy to go home walking. Like the thing with taxis is that technically if you share the money, it's actually better if you're there. But otherwise I'm like, I'm happy to just walk home for 40 minutes or whatever. Regardless, because I've always liked walking. But my God, is it nice to have a bike sometimes because there's so much more opportunities available. And I've always understood why people like driving because it gives you that freedom. But man, I don't really want to be driving. I don't want to own a car. And there's something so nice about having the option of a bike and getting good at that to be like a bit like you, where you've biked incredible distances and you've done it and then, to Dover and then gone across to, I'm about to say Cairns, but that's not what I mean. What's it called in France? Sorry, I'm blanking on it. Calais, yeah. To Calais and then cycling from there. It's like, that kind of thing is not something a person could do walking wise in the kind of time that we're allowed at this point in capitalism. Like, it's just not a thing we can do. Yeah. We don't have that kind of time afforded to us. Whether we should or not, I guess, is a different question. But You get what I mean? Like that allows for is truly magnificent in that regard, and I want to get good at it. So it's a little project in the back of my mind alongside the project of the of the bike itself that I'm repairing. And I don't know, like I guess now being 28, oh my god, 28. I'm kind of trying to make this. I'm trying to think about my year in as in and of itself as a whole, and trying to actually have like, what's the word for it? Like goals, not like kind of like New Year's goals, I guess, to a certain extent. But to me, it's like there's kind of a thing I want to work on, and I want to kind of set my work towards that. It's too long a period of time to really set a goal like that for, but it's one of those things where I do care about it. And I think this year could be really good. Let's try and make it as good as possible. Let's try and work towards that. So yeah, that's been my big, like, kind of the biggest apotheosis I've made recently, I guess, is that kind of general analysis of the fact that I'm at this point in my life. Tell me a little bit about what you've been up to recently. I kind of want to learn. I genuinely don't actually know, so I'm actually interested. But this is a good segue and setup, right?
I was just thinking about like what you said about like bike riding and wanting to get good at it and the step-by-step process. Like I'm not an expert on bike. It goes wrong. Like I take it to the bike shop. They know me. They do a good deal. I can, if I really needed to, fix like a tire punch or whatever. I've done it, and that's it's a process. But I think we spoke about this last week as well, which is funny. Last week's episode came out today. We are updated this now. We are recording this on the 27th. So it's like the idea of being good with bikes. I think I'm good at riding a bike, good at repairing a bike. It's a whole different thing. But like the process of it is really fun though. Like that car alarm was really weird. It made a really weird Tetris sound. Anyway.
Yeah, that was bizarre. I thought it was a Tamagotchi for a second.
Yeah. If anyone like is thinking, I want to do something physical, gym, I go to the gym. Just get a bike, man. Cycle to work. If you work from home, then you're kind of fucked. But overall, replacing like a bike with a car is a pretty decent way to get yourself started. And as much as I hate line bikes, I've used them so much recently. Like, I'm night drinking. I'm like, hey, look, if I die because a bus smashes into a line bike, that's fine. But if it smashes into my actual bike, my soul will be sad too. Like, so look after the good bike you have. So yeah, line bikes are great if you're drunk. It's a terrible thing to say. Line bikes are useful. Line bikes are very useful for a variety of different reasons. I hate them, but they're useful. Just get riding a bike. Just ride a bike. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, anyway. We have barrel bikes here. I should probably try using them as well, but I've been, yeah.
Plowing ahead. I had a job interview. They were adamant that they wanted to see my face on the webcam. And the thing is, my excuse is always, oh yeah, if I turn on the webcam, the internet lags really badly. And in fairness, it does to an extent, but after a few seconds, it goes away. But I hate being on webcam. So I ended up, like, they seem really nice people, which is a good sign. But they rescheduled the interview to be in person next week. And I was just like, did I just stay my own execution in a way? Did I just delay, like, something that, like, what have I done here? So that happened.
Wait, what? Sorry, what does that mean? I'm confused by what that means.
What, stay of execution?
Yeah, but what are you referring to? It feels like.
So, like, I was expecting that the job I'm always expecting that it's going to be below average. Even though I'm really good at job interviews, I always expect it to go bad. So I'm expecting for like it to be like you don't know shit, shut up, and for me to just like fail and fall into a hole and get buried alive. Of course, that isn't going to happen. But right before the interview starts, it's the first thing I start thinking about. So like I'm like, did I just delay my own execution here? And I just made it face to face instead. Is that what I've done?
Oh, I see. Right. So you've moved on to the next stage, and your worry is it's just that you've set yourself up to fail.
Again, yeah. Because like I'm like,
Okay.
I was really gonna, anyway. That was the whole thing. But then also, like, this week has been a really, God, using the term stay of execution when now discussing the story being executed. Great stuff. Did not mean to do this at all. Yeah, so Marcellus Williams, if you know who that is, don't me to educate you. Black man in prison, been in prison for ages, and he was on death row for a very long time. Now, the issue with this is quite simple. They didn't know whether he was actually guilty or not. They had no idea. They had no clue. And the reason why they had no clue is because new evidence came to light that for some reason, multiple times, the court system in Missouri, America, said, nah, this is DNA evidence that shows he wasn't actually there. And multiple people, including the woman who he apparently killed, her family has come out and been like, no, don't kill him. The prosecution team have said, hey, don't kill him because we don't know it's like for sure. And everybody who with a conscience in America was pretty much saying, hey, don't kill him. And literally, they literally killed him. And you don't actually know that fear of anything when you realize how little you can matter in a whole system. Millions of people were saying, hey, we cannot kill this man. And like, I couldn't even begin. But yeah, it's one of the strangest things because it kind of reminds me of the lynchings of old. And when I say of old, it wasn't, to be honest, like a black man being lynched actually isn't that new of a thing, and it still happens quite often. Just look at it. Just look at how the police treats black people. Now, that is a case that I'll probably never forget the Marcellus Williams one, because the idea of everyone around you, even the people who originally sent you down, saying, hey, we've got this wrong and here's some strong evidence, was still nothing. And that, yeah. So it's a whole thing. But it got me thinking about just how crazy that is. And like, yeah, I'm just reading through it now just to verify something. And this is also quite funny. Not in a ha-ha way, but in a way. So attorneys for Williams, Marcellus, who was black, also challenged the fairness of his trial, particularly the fact that only one of the 12 jurors was black. So the prosecutor of the case, 6 of the 7 prospective black jurors. Now, it felt like they were doing everything in their power to make sure they got a win. And we know what Missouri is like. We know what originates from Missouri, so we know exactly what their whole end game was. The reality is just this. If you're a black man in today's society, they will kill you. If they want you dead, they will find a way to kill you. Anyway, that's what I spent the last few days thinking about. And
can I just say how grisly some of these details are? Like looking at it,
yeah,
it's actually confounding in a way that Thing
is, it's not whether he's guilty or not. That isn't actually.
Well, clearly it didn't matter.
It's more the fact that
from
there
their
was
perspective.
It was enough to say, look, we can't justify killing him because this evidence kind of says that this wasn't him. But yeah. Anyway, on to more positive things.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna have to really God, what a fucking nightmare. 20 years on death row, executed by lethal injection in just this most ridiculous. I truly don't know the details, and I'm gonna have to learn the details just to recognize how bad this is, even though it's clearly bad. without even I'm truly internally like not the kind of person I seem to be sometimes when I make myself appear, how shall I say, like trying to understand the other side as best as possible. Like I'm just not like that. And this is making me incredibly I'm gonna have to compartmentalize this somewhat and then come back to this. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, please continue. Since I don't want to take away from you in this moment.
Like, anyway, on to more positive thing. Yesterday I went to see my favorite stand-up comedian, one of my favorite, well, one and two, Anthony Jeselnik, who had his whole Bones and All tour, and it was fucking great. It was superb. And I did say to Joe, said to Ryan as well, I think, and probably like 6 other people, this is all we're going to talk about. The reality is I'm actually lying. I actually don't, because talking about a comedy show to somebody else who wasn't there never sounds like good. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to talk about the beautiful art form that is comedy. Not in a genre, the 250 straight killers, and with the last bastions of free speech. No. I want to speak about it more on just what it does in general. Now, Jeselnik's show had 2 openers. My cat is trying to break down the door. That is not one of the openers. And Adam Rowe, and it had Kelly Ryan. Both of them killed it for a variety of different reasons. And rather than me telling you their jokes, just go and look them. Adam Rowe hosts like the UK's #1 comedy podcast. Never heard of him until this show yesterday. Well, 26th. And I'm glad I didn't, because it was even better because his jokes hit even more. Because you don't know someone's comedy style. It hits you like something fresh. And it's like, oh, it's refreshing. It feels good. Everyone's happy, you know?
Yeah. Can I just ask?
Sure.
Oh, actually, I did want to say, make sure you're pointing towards the mic. Otherwise, because I want to hear everything that you say. But the second thing I was going to say was, where was this?
At the London Apollo.
Oh, okay. It's London Apollo. Great. Might actually see this more easily then if it's at London Apollo. Probably find it.
Like the Eventim Apollo.
Mm-hmm.
But what I really loved about the show, is he had the 2 openers. Kelly Ryan as well also smashed it. Like, then he came out, and his soul style, I would just say watch his Netflix specials, Shakespeare and Fire in the Maternity Ward. There's something great about someone who is methodical in their process, you know? Like someone who's taking care about what they do, but is able to, I guess, show their prowess through how nonchalantly and how calm they do the skill that they have. Like, you see, like Usain Bolt makes running look easy. He breaks the world record, and some say he could have done it even quicker. You know? That's how good someone like Jeselnik is. Is this glazing? Yes, it is. Of the highest tier? Absolutely. I'm going to keep going? Yeah, I'm going to keep going. Here's the thing. I would love to be at that point with something in my life where I am so good at it that people think I'm not trying hard enough. And that level of skill is what separates like the best of the rest to the world-class elite, you know? There's something about Lionel Messi and Ronaldo. When they perform anything on the football pitch, they just make it look really easy. People have videos of Messi like walking in the MLS, just walking around, playing in America, and he's just walking around. And then all of a sudden, he's in front of goal and he scores. And people are saying, look, he doesn't have to do anything. No, he's doing a lot. He just knows exactly where to be at the right, perfect time. Because he's been here before. This is what he does.
Mm-hmm.
Take Ronaldo. Like his best goal was that leaping header. And that's like the height, like that's like a world record jump, I think it is. Makes it look easy. Just like exploded off the air effectively, launched himself into the sky, and headed a ball directly into a goal with a goalkeeper in it. Like, it's not like, and he made it look so easy. That is the level that I would say Anthony Jeselnik, where you are just at a point where you make things look smooth, crisp, to a point, nothing's wasted, everything makes sense. And that's what he did. In terms of mental health, comedy shows are great. Jeselnik is known for his dark humor, and not in the, oh, I say offensive shit way. No, in the, literally, this is what dark humor is. Topics which are a bit oof to discuss, but discuss them in a way that isn't punching down on the subject of the topic, but more making it a joke about the thing. And that's what a lot of comedians recently have failed on. Like, they failed that task completely. Like, if anything, just watch the Elephant Graveyard YouTube. You know, great YouTuber, I guess you can call it, who makes long form content about comedy, stuff like that as well.
Can you say that again? The Elephant Graveyard?
Yeah, the Elephant Graveyard. That's
okay.
it.
It's a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Has a very like specific sense of humor as well. Deadpan, irreverent style, and it just works.
Oh, is it the guy you showed me talking about some... Oh, maybe it wasn't you. Sorry. I'm getting in the way. I thought you might have showed me something, because a lot of the stuff I see is from you. But
I don't know. Anyway, the point of what I'm trying to like get through is this. Personally, I look at myself and I go, I want to be that good at, but you know, I want to be that good. Saiyan, Chai, and Muay Thai is another example of that. You know, just makes everything look super easy. Yeah, you guys get my point. For mental health's sake, it is so good to see something so well put together from start to finish. And it didn't overstay its welcome. It didn't delay. It didn't miss. Everything hit perfectly. And he just left. And I was like, this is perfect. Like, there was never any, like, issue or nothing. No one was ever running late. Like, it just felt like you were watching a professional show. And that was that. Same with Penn and Teller. When I saw Penn and Teller, exact same thing. It was like professionals doing what they do. And they seemed so passionate, but they didn't seem like they were ever out of control. That is something that I would love to have in something. Anyway, I recommend to everyone to go and see a live show of some sort. A good live show of some sort. I think it's super important. And that's it. I didn't have super, like, I really wanted to talk for hours about the show, but like, there's only so much one could discuss without them go around in circles, which I'm already beginning to, you know?
We've touched on the subject before about live things in general. We talked about it from the perspective of you going to see Penn and Teller and me not going, and me giving all the reasons at the time why I didn't, and me maybe thinking that might not be the right way of thinking about it anyway. And I think that there's a true statement, and also I've actually heard, kind of, whether it be a podcast or otherwise, I've heard people discussing this topic in a similar way with the opposite opinion, that like sometimes they truly dislike a lot of their live experience in certain cases. I do think there's something, I think regardless of how you engage with things, if I'm not wrong, and I realize I don't remember the name off the top of my head, can you say the second person who's your favorite comedian?
Bill Burr.
Bill Burr. So me and you together, we watched, I can't remember when this happened, but I remember we watched his special where, is it Red Rock? Is that where it was?
Yeah, Red Rock.
In Colorado, right? And I thought it was an amazing, I loved the entire thing. I thought it was great. To be in the audience, sorry, let me rephrase this. That happened before I went to my first ever comedy thing. Like, I've never been to a comedy night. I've never done that before at that time. And it wasn't until I went to see my brother for the first time in Manchester that I got to experience that. And obviously, luckily, the comedy worked in my favor. But even then, I think it still would have been enjoyable, even if there were elements of the comedy that weren't amazing for me. But holy crap, was it amazing to watch a person go on stage and do their thing. Like, it's such a good experience. And it's something that I think, because I was chatting to you and saying, like, before this started, I was saying, like, how closely the comedy reflects like any other form of theater, in that you go to watch it and the person has obviously put a lot of effort and time into crafting like this set with a lot of potential improv available depending on the person. Like I know Dara Brian, for example. I love Dara Brian, I really do. And he was always like he always had a lot of like kind of chat with the crowd improv-y stuff, which would always eventually come back around to stuff he had in his arsenal, blah, blah, blah. And also like the night I went out, I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head since I'm just referring to him now. But and this isn't the guy whose name I messed up before. This is the other guy, the guy who was in the Paralympics. For those who remember the name of the guy I mentioned back then, he literally at one point, and to be fair, he could have been he could be acting a little bit in the moment, but I think he genuinely was like, no, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to chat about my dad for a second, because he actually was like, he was getting on it, and then it suddenly like hit him just how crazy his dad was, or how weird his dad was on occasion. So it's just like, fuck it, I'm going to talk about my dad for a second. And there's something so great about seeing people's craft in action that cannot be replicated on the screen. It cannot be replicated in any sort of other form. And you know, when I was watching Bill Burr with you, I don't remember what that comedy special is called. You might remember
the Red Rocks one.
Yeah, the Red Rocks one.
It's just called Live at Red Rocks, I think.
Live at Red Rocks, bro. So like the idea of seeing that live and being a part of that experience. I mean, obviously that Red Rocks area is huge. Like the arena or whatever you call it is huge. So like imagining being at the back and seeing like a tiny version of it was quite funny. But like just the idea of like being in that crowd and experiencing what we experienced, but in a situation where we were kind of set to dial in on him, which obviously not everyone is necessarily up for, but I personally believe that if you're going to see anything, that you fucking dial in. Like you get fucking into it. Like you savor what you're experiencing, right? And the effect of that is so fascinating in terms of not in terms of the quality of the experience, because you can't think of it that way, but it's genuinely like the right way to say it is like something genuine about the experience that you cannot get from just experiencing something on an online platform. I'm not saying that this is necessarily means that everything that we experience I shouldn't say online platform, in a virtual space, like, you know, whether it be like TV or radio or otherwise. It's not to say that these things lack like something that, you know, that means that it's defunct. It also doesn't mean that everything that we interact with should be in a physical form and never in a virtual space. Like, for example, I actually am quite happy with documentaries about nature, meaning that we're able to understand nature without needing us to like literally take animals out of, you know, the wildlife and put them in front of us. Like, I'm glad that we don't have a Crystal Palace where there's a bear that's being like, you know, that's being made for show, right? You know what I mean? Like, I like that we're not working within those confines anymore. I like that we can process that information without need, you know, in where animals are just allowed to be what they are, right? But but where possible, it's worth doing. And I think you're totally right. Like, I'm so, first of all, I didn't know that you were going to see this. I don't know when this, or sorry, I did know, but I didn't know that like it was happening like now. Like, I didn't realize quite when it was happening. But it was so, like, as soon as I saw the picture, I was like, I can't believe how much fun he's going to have. Like, I genuinely was like, he's going to have so much fun. Like, I like, how can he not, you know, and there's a part of me that just felt happy that you were experiencing it in a vicarious way, or like just a recognition that like, this is that I knew immediately the experience you would have was immediately going to be different. And as a person who I know enjoys him as a comedian, I was like, fuck, man. Like, I'm like thinking to myself, like, damn, I remember when we went to see RKS. I'm like, yeah, it's like that. Like that thing we went to see live and got to experience that I can never experience again in the same way. Like, that's what you're going to feel. And I was, well, hopefully, obviously, that's not always the truth. And that's kind of the sad reality, like, especially with like music, I think. People do go to concerts and it's like, it's not as good. But like, my mum went to see Stevie Wonder live and she said it was amazing. And I can obviously imagine from her feeling and perspective and how much she loves Stevie Wonder, how big a deal it was to be there and have Stevie Wonder singing on the stage. You know what I mean? So yeah. It's such a big, it's such a beautiful thing, and it's something that I think we're more like, as I think we're getting across here, is becoming less true over time. You know, like there is this propensity to not have live performances happening as often, especially because we live in a world where like other countries have these, you know, people who come up and that we really, really enjoy, but we don't necessarily get to experience them. And it turns out when they are in your area, everyone wants to go see them. And there's a reason why. And it's not just because of fandom. It's not like that kind of obsessive fandom going on. It's like the experience is genuinely different for whatever you're going to experience in that moment, whether it be music, comedy. Trying to think of an obvious one right now that would exist. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Oh, D&D. Holy shit. Like, I didn't even realize, but like, you know, there's been a bunch of D&D, whether it be Critical Role or Dimension 20, that has occurred on, has done like tours or has done like stuff at different theaters. And I've not gone to any one of them because I was poor, but but genuinely, when I mean, I have money now, but like now that we're kind of getting into that space, I'm like, yeah, I'm actually going to like arrange to go see this shit. Like, I'm going to try to get tickets for this sort of thing and keep up to date, because actually I fucking want to go to this shit. Because honestly, like what, like I'm taking something away from myself by not engaging in this, because the live experience is going to have so much more involved. And it's hard to explain. So that's why I'm poor at explaining it, but there really is a true difference, as we can collectively agree we've experienced, you know.
Like, I went to a EDM fest, maybe hopefully it was last, I don't think it was last year, I think it may be 2 years.
Yeah.
There's 2 videos of me dancing around and all that stuff. Now, it is not my type of music. There's 1 or 2 EDM based songs in my whole playlist, and like, I could tolerate them. Sometimes I skip them, sometimes I don't skip them. I wouldn't, like, if someone would say, like, put a gun to her head and be like, tell me your favorite genres of music, I wouldn't go EDM. EDM would be like in the relegation zone here. I went to it anyway. Good friend Victor, good old Latvian buddy, and we had a great time. It was great. And I'm gonna, like, he bought those tickets. So now, eventually, we're gonna have to go to another one. I'm gonna have to pay for the tickets. And I'm happy to go to that because, like, it's something different. I saw Chase and Status live. I realized how many people have been like, I really want to see Chase and Status live. I'm like, I only knew them because of a song on FIFA. That was it. It's like, and that's it. That's literally the only connection I had to them.
Mm.
After they finished their set and after the show was finished, I didn't go and look for any of the artists. I didn't feel like I needed to. That was that. That was a connection done. But the whole night in general was a good experience. I think the festival was like an all-day festival as well. And it was great. Live events are cool. If you enjoy them and you enjoy what you're going to see, it's even better. If you, like, have the opportunity to try something, especially if you're not paying for it, just take it. Like,
yeah,
I like Penn and Teller. I have an interest in magic because of exactly why Penn and Teller do magic. Like, it's not to insult your intelligence, but it's to make you think about how your intelligence is being. Like, how can we detach you from that? Like, that is cool for me. The concept of going, oh, the monkey is running behind the stage. I just didn't see it the first time. Like, Jesus, help me. Things like that. Anyway, if there's a live show that you have the opportunity to go to it. And start off by going to good ones. Like, if there's a comedian who you've heard on the podcast and he's doing, like, I don't know, a show at the Hackney Empire, for example, which is near where I live, go buy a ticket and go. Same with, like, live musicians and things like that. There's a band, and, like, for example, Lastel, who I mentioned in the episode that came out today, they were actually performing in London, in, like, Islington, I believe it is. And I couldn't go because I was working, but I would have gone to see them. And my only introduction to them was going to see the band In Me in, like, where were we? somewhere near Milton Keynes. And it's just, those are experiences, and especially given the times we're in now with a lot of us who are in our mid-20s are suffering. If we ever get the opportunity to go to these things, be it because you saved up money to go, or someone's paying for us, you just got to grab it, man. If you hate it, then you know you hate it, but you just have to give it a go. Just once, at least.
Yeah, I also want to add to this because I guess that actually reminds me, like, I didn't know Leicester until I heard about them. And I assume a lot of people didn't until you said it on this podcast, for example, if you mentioned them and they actually like looked into them at all. I think there's something to be said about just going to live events where you don't know the person involved, because when I think about it in retrospect, like the Manchester thing I went to, the comedy night I went to, not only, there was a main act, sure, of people, there was a person who was the main act, who was good, obviously, but not everyone there was going there for that person. I mean, literally in my case, my entire group had no idea who any of the people there were. Again, an honestly bold choice on my brother's part to like just set that up. Like, it's incredible that he did that. Yet it was it worked out. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things that really could go bad. But the fact that but the fact is that, like, one, turns out that your humor is actually shared by a lot of people most of the time. Just, that's kind of true. You're not that special, brah. Like, you're just not. Yeah. And that's not a problem because it's a great thing that we have a connection. But what's especially true is that, like, hey, you'll have a few tags probably for any event that says, like, that gives you an idea of what the kind of music you might be listening to is, or you get a chance to just be like, hey, there's this comedian that's on tonight. And obviously there are lots of people, and this is kind of a crazy thing. There are lots of people that just go to not knowing any of the comedians and just go anyway, like me. But I mean, there are people who like do it regularly, like they just like kind of fucking just be like, oh, there's a comedy night going here, I'm just going to go there. They don't check anything about the people.
People go to poetry open mics, weird me out.
Oh, sorry, just repeat that again.
People go to poetry open mics, they weird me out. Like, so in my head, whenever you go to poetry, the vast majority of people in the poets who want to perform. And I realized that is stupid. Because like, because in my head, like, it's all selfish, like professional wrestling. Everyone's selfish. No, like, so I've had people come up to be like, oh, we liked your poem. I was like, oh, you're just another poet and you're being really nice, and that's what we do. No, they ain't written a single thing in their life. They're just being nice, nigga. like, stop thinking someone's out to get you, bro. Like, speaking to someone who just bought a ticket for £10, like, yeah, I just like to listen to poetry, and if it's not good, that's okay, because it's one of them art forms where things can sound like shit, but the person reading it makes it sound good, then I guess you can call it good. And I was like, oh, look at that. And I realized something. It is really easy to make terrible poetry if you read it like it's terrible poetry. But you could also write terrible poetry, read it like it's really good, and then people will think it's really good. And then the whole question is this: is there really such thing as objectively bad poetry? And the answer is yes, but it's hard to actually define it. And that's what makes art beautiful. Because how can you define something as being bad? It is poorly written, sure, but in a spoken word aspect, it takes a lot to really create a bad piece. Probably going to be the one to know what a bad piece looks like, because I've probably written all of them. But
it's also a difference between like this is always a thing of like the artist's interpretation versus the general interpretation from the outside. But I think a big part of what we're kind of getting to is that like you don't actually have to be someone who is the kind of person who literally goes to all these events. Like, you don't have to do every one. But I actually truly, and I'm obviously I'm saving money away, and there's a part of me that's like, I'm looking around to see, like, is there improv groups in my area? Is there like, are there poetry nights where they're happening, kind of thing? Because I'm like, I should just be going, like, comedy as well. I should just be going to this shit. Like, if they exist, I kind of want to go to them, and I kind of just want to like hang out. I want to enjoy it. I want to say to my friends like, "Hey, do you want to go to this thing?" And even if it's a terrible night, does it really matter at a certain level? Like, does it matter? It's just a single night. It's a thing you pay for. If you have the money, do it. Obviously, if you don't, and it's a difficulty and all of that, I do understand.
Yeah, if you don't like it, leave. That's another
Yeah.
thing you can also do.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, I mean, the number of people, I have actually never done this in my life, but I know a bunch of people. Well, I shouldn't say I know a bunch of people. I've seen on the internet a bunch of people who have left the cinema like way earlier than the film ended, like, you know, like halfway through or whatever, because they're just like, this is awful. I don't actually have that conceptualization in my head of being able to do that. Not because
I wanted to. I couldn't. I have a great example. So
go for it.
I'm scared of repeating myself here. Who knows? I went to see Aliens Romulus. All my friends were going, yeah, let's see Aliens. And I agreed to this beforehand. We set up to go and went to Stratford Westfield, went up the escalator. All like myself, you know, Ben, Casey, Harry. Yeah. All of us were there. And I sit down and I'm just like, wait a second. Alien. This is a horror movie franchise. I hate horror movies. Why am I here? Why? Like, I hate everything about horror movies. I hate the suspension of the music. I hate the jump scares. I hate the goriness. I hate the blood everywhere. I hate the if it's like a creepy alien insectoid thingy. I hate spiders too. Why am I at this movie? And I start sweating before the movie starts. And the movie starts, and like the spaceship rolling through. Yeah, rolling through space or whatever the fuck is doing. I'm like,
keep rolling.
So I was expecting a jump scare like every 35 seconds. I was like, God. And I'm claustrophobic as well. It's not the worst thing in the world, but like for them in order to get to the spaceship to climb through like a really narrow tunnel, I'm like, why are we here? like, why am I here? Then the film gets scary. I'm like, oh God. And like there's a couple next to me, and the girl is like shivering every time something comes up. She's kneeing me in the leg, which makes you think there's like a face hugger on my leg. And I'm like, ah! And they're like, it's like this is a terrible experience. Why am I here? And like another couple left like 45 minutes into the movie, and I was like, ha, pussies, I'm surviving. I was internally crying the entire time. It was like, I remember checking my watch, my Fitbit, being like, there's only like half an hour's gone. Like, what the fuck? Like, wait, oh, there's so much more. And I thought, okay, fine. Like, the bad big alien's dead now. So it's great. Oh, it's back. Jump scare. Ah, why? Like, and I'm just like, cool. And when the lights in the cinema turned on again, I was like, yeah, we're going home. like I just felt scared walking back through the streets of Hackney. Like, I'm gonna see a face hugger. It's all over. GG. No re. Insert coin to continue.
GG, no re.
Like, it's shit. Like, I hate
9,
movies so
8,
much.
7, 6, 5. Just at the end of like some fighting game arcade.
Like, everything's wrong. Like, you know.
Yeah, so, you know, obviously have your own, you know, invite your own, what's the word for it? Like, you know, not self-preservation. That's not the right word. Self-determination. Invite your own self-determination with these things, obviously. If you don't like the vibe, get the fuck out. But there's a lot of vibes that exist, and a lot of vibes are generally chill, because most people are generally chill in reality, or actually kind of fun. And specifically only kind of fun in an experience where you're there. Like, it wouldn't be unless you were there live, which is almost a cop out. Like, arguably there's a cop out there, but the thing is that, like, just recognize that it's sometimes things are nice because you are within the experience. Like, and that's all it comes down to, that some things are just not interesting outside of it. But, you know, as soon as you're there, I went to, in fact, Thanks for the Memories, which was a thing. The fire station is like the student pub not pub, student bar in
Is that a Fall Out Boy based?
Bournemouth, at Bournemouth University. Yeah, how did you know? It's
Great
not
song,
specifically
great
Fall Out Boy, but it is good. But it's the emo night, basically. It's like it happened every month. So and I was in a house at one point where we went to it not every single month, but we went to it multiple months, And a lot of the songs I don't know. But you know me, when I'm out, I dance. And I worked out how to dance to it, and I enjoyed it well enough that I fucking just went for it. And it was fun. And it was also fun being with people who knew the songs and enjoyed them better than I did. And I still fucking enjoyed what was happening because I got to experience it with other people, and it's also a very different environment. If you got me to listen to all of the music, I get bored and listen to something else I enjoy more. And a lot of those songs that I heard, I've definitely never heard ever again. It's not on my Spotify. But in the moment, who gives a shit? Just have a good time. And especially if you're, if other people are having a good time, obviously it's not going to be true for everyone. And also, when I say it's not going to be true for everyone, I'm kind of being maybe a bit, I know we should end soon, but I do want to add this last bit. I know sometimes I'm being like very inclusive, like overly inclusive sometimes when I say certain things because, and I mean that in a subtle way, because a lot of the time I'll say, oh, maybe, a lot of people won't feel this way. But the reality is that the vast majority of people listening to this will feel this way. I'm talking about like really, really specific examples of people who won't, right? It's very rare that you won't get some like kind of secondary high off of the people around you. You know what I mean? Like you won't get something off of the people around you. It doesn't mean you'll always get it. It doesn't mean that you'll get the exact same feeling that they're feeling. Of course you won't, like it's just, I'm not expecting people who don't drink, for example, to get the same experience as those who are drunk. No. But like people who are experiencing something and enjoying something, and if you can get something out of it, then it kind of, there's a feedback loop that can occur with it where you do gain some benefit out of it. Having said that, if you're on your own and you go to an event, go to an event. Obviously, if you're more introverted, I can understand the difficulty because a lot of the time you go and then you just have yourself to work with to figure out how to do things. I do think all introverted people have to, at some level, work out how to work with other people in spaces where there aren't other people. I say that purely from a personal perspective. That's not like me saying that that's the truth for everyone. However, I do think that there's a genuine reality that, and I think you're actually a good example of it, Alec, because you've been telling me, at least recently, I feel like you've been telling me that you did say on the last episode, I think, that you've been interacting with more, or maybe the episode before, but you've been interacting with more people and enjoying it.
Yeah.
You've actually, social Cupid has become a thing. And it's something that needs to be explored, like it should be explored because ultimately there's introvert and extrovert are relative things, and also at the same time are not specific indicators of happiness or sadness or otherwise. And even if you feel one way, give yourself the opportunity to explore other avenues to learn what is actually your personal medium. The kind of the medium you want to exist in, the levels that you want to exist in. And also not to mention that over the course of your life, these things will change as you change as a person. So don't get like crystallized in these ideas of what an introvert is, an extrovert is, and all this other bullshit, which really is trying to explain something which ultimately is too complicated to explain with a simple statement of what your entire personality should be around. I'm not saying that there's no basis for this stuff, but I also think ultimately that if we're being real, development has such a big impact that you can develop as a human being throughout your life in a different avenue and different way. And again, it's not a question of good or bad. It's just how you are at the time and ultimately what you would prefer. And I think people should explore these things. So
Pretty much.
both in a social setting and both in a live setting, I think people should explore this. And considering that we both chatted, well, you actually pointed this out more than I have, how much kind of like live stuff has become even like financially gated for a lot of people, you know, like for young people and even for people in work. I think that it's kind of an important thing to try and not let yourself get like completely and utterly, not lose yourself in the weeds of thinking that you have to constantly sacrifice these kind of live experiences in order to just survive. Like it's if we can, like, you know, don't just constantly rely on the virtual world in order to gain the, you know, the gain to enjoy things. It truly is. I personally, I truly don't believe it's worth it, and I don't believe it is a true comparison or a true alternative, a true substitute. And I think COVID was a good example of this. And I think everyone's recognition that Meta is such a crazy idea, like what Meta is trying to promise, for example, is a crazy idea and blah, blah, blah. Like, I think there's so much discourse around this, and also a recognition of where we are as a society with how we are engaging with technology, which has shown that this is not true. Which has shown that we do recognize there is some distinction. But if you're someone who doesn't think this way, all I say is just give a little bit going. And if you're someone like me who is just bad,
join a cult.
And if you're someone like me who is just
join a cult, die, be born again, dance on the beaches of London Bridge, and then say that you praise fire to the wind, and then burn some sage.
Yeah.
And find yourself. Go traveling like all the other middle class white girls do. Go to Colombia and say that you're down with nature. And then, like, you know, go to Thailand and be like, oh, I love Asian people. Go volunteer in Africa and have a picture of a black baby and say you love black people too. And do the world tour, you dumb bitch. And that is not even gender specific. Anyone can do it. Not even racial specific, okay? Like, let's be real here. Like, this is the shit, you know? You find yourself in these moments because you're relatively safe because of who you are. Find yourself in moments. Or you can take a fucking risk and you can become a drug dealer.
Oh, there's so much, like, experience of life you'll get through that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know? But most importantly, find yourself in whatever way you want to find. Okay, this isn't meant to be motivational chat at all. It's more like just, hey, you see that thing over there? Do it. Fuck it. Why not? Like, oh, comedy show? Yeah, sure, do it. Why? Because you figure out what you like, you don't like, rather than having as Joda said, rather than having the assumption that, oh, there's something I don't like, so I'm not going to do it. For example, how do I know I don't like Taylor Swift's music? I've listened to Taylor Swift. Simple as. Like, how do I know I like Charlie XCX? Listen to Charlie XCX. Easy. Makes sense. Look at that. If you don't know, you don't experience, you don't try, you learn nothing. You just stay in a weird loop. And that is the show. Is there anything else?
Thank you for like much simply explaining what I took so long to explain. It's honestly genuinely helpful, but I love hearing just how simply people can put into words what I tried to explain in the matter of.
No, you're putting it together really well. I just wanted to be direct to the people who like to hear things told to them directly, you know? Like, I feel like if me and you had to fire somebody, come in like a bouquet of flowers and chocolates, and you'd be like, I'm sorry I have to do this. And then I'll come in after to be like, you're fucking shit. You just have to go. You have to go.
I was actually imagining a sort of like indirect cop, direct cop situation with it.
Like, but I feel like you are direct in the way that you care about like you care about the delivery of what you're saying. I care about the delivery and the tone of what I'm saying, but I want to also make sure that they understand. You know?
Actually, you know what? This is actually kind of funny. I think so this is actually going to be a situation where we are so over for this episode.
Yeah, I know.
But I did want to, I realize now that this is actually kind of funny given what we just said. I do think in real life, I am more direct and you are actually better at like being more indirect and still getting the same message across. I actually think that in reality, on the podcast, me and you are switched compared to real life. Because I feel like in real life, I feel like I'm much more direct than I am on this, and I feel like you're much nicer in real life.
I think
I shouldn't say much
direct
nicer.
with words. I'm indirect with emotions and feelings because
There you go.
I'm always afraid
I'm
of
more
being
direct to emotions and feelings in real life, and less direct with words. I think that's the right way of saying it. So yeah.
Anyway, we're not going to do 2 episodes ever again here, but I think that truncated silence will help us out a lot.
Yeah, we're working on the idea of maybe doing some other kinds of episodes. Maybe.
No
see.
More conversation. No more talking. We're done. No more. Before my headphone dies and all you hear is.
Okay.
So yeah,
I shut up.
Me tue. Wait, I have to say the intro bit. The outro bit.
Yeah.
We're gonna take 2 steps.
So
to the
with
rear.
that, we'll take 2 steps to the rear.
I'm gonna stab you.
And get out of here. We're in the wind.
I'm gonna no, never, never, never let. The only time you can ever close the show is if someone says something offensive and I storm off and I leave. That's the only time you can.
Oh, real? Okay, that's the okay. Well, I'm gonna have to really make you try and leave then.
You're like hire as a guest to call me the N-word, like, and I stay. We're gonna take 2 steps to the rear and get out of here. We're in the wind. See ya.
Bye-bye.